Short video, I'm going to look at how to interview, how I would approach and interview a candidate for a job role. And we're going to be using the PeopleMaps system here, and we're looking specifically at the PeopleMaps Interview Pro range of reports. So if you've got candidates that you're about to be interviewing, then please keep watching. I think you'll find this quite helpful. So in the PeopleMaps control room, and if you've not got one, you can register and get a control room. There's no charge for that. And first thing I want to do is decide what kind of job it is that we're actually looking at and decide which report design to use. So within the Interview Pro range, there are several report designs. Now, if you're not sure, none of these jump out at you and are obvious to the job role that you're looking at, then please just contact PeopleMaps. We will happily recommend which one to use for your specific job that you're looking at. So there's all sorts of things here: hospitality, sales, staff, recruitment consultants, management, team leader, IT engineering. There's a sort of general one. So again, generally speaking, if you're not sure, then use the general one. It will give you exactly what you need. It'll certainly be plenty more than if you didn't have any personality report at all. And there's one: customer service, contact centres, care workers. Pretty much we cover the whole gambit of things. So there will be a report for you. And in this case here, I'm going to be looking at this report, which is the management and team leader. So this is really for interviewing anybody who may also be responsible for other staff. And this is such a critical area. Big surveys recently have revealed that 53% of people cite their line manager as being the reason they quit their job. So they didn't quit for more money, they didn't quit for a promotion, they didn't quit for all those other reasons. They quit because they weren't getting on with their line manager. So managing people is a really difficult job. So if you're going to be hiring a manager, you really want to know if they can do the job, including can they manage other people? How do they manage other people? So that's the report we're going to be using. And I'm literally going to take you through how I would approach this. So I've decided on this much. And let's say we've already had our candidates complete the questionnaire, and they'd all be showing up here in the view results. I just click on Interview Pro, and my candidates will be registered here. I finally open up the report. Now this logo here is whatever logo you upload. So if you're a recruitment agency, this might be your logo. If you're the employer, then it might be your logo here that you display, and it goes on front. And this is the PDF version of the report. So I've opened the report, I've got the PDF, and you can copy and paste this into a Word document if you want to share it with your colleagues and collaborate and make notes and comments on it, which again is something I would encourage you to do. So if you use things like Google Documents, then it's okay to share this if there's 2 or 3 of you making a decision here, and you can make your own comments. So once I've got the report in front of me, now this is quite a long report, 30 pages. Most of the Interview Pro range are between sort of 18 and 30 pages long. There is no way I would be able to get through an interview and all of this report within the space of, say, an hour or 45 minutes for an interview. So probably the first thing I want to do is highlight the subject areas that I specifically want to prioritise and talk about. And it might only be, say, 2 or 3, it might be 4 or 5. You know what you've got time for, but I would certainly prioritise, because I will not have time to go through everything. Because once you start talking, then you find that the conversation really goes, and that's part of the reason you want to use the report. The report here is about getting the conversation flowing. It's about getting candidates to actually relax enough to open up and reveal something about themselves that, generally speaking, doesn't reveal in an interview. It's a very artificial environment. It's often a very tense environment. So your job as the interviewer is to get people to actually open up and tell you something that's useful and that you need to know. So I would scoot through it. So we've got administration. So maybe that's a big thing for me. Maybe it's not. Communication, probably would come back to that. Decision making. So maybe in this role is going to have to make a lot of decision. Delegation. Yeah, most managers have to be able to delegate. Most managers are not that good at it. Leadership. So we maybe want to understand what kind of leadership style this person has, how they go about managing others, how they approach this. how they manage resources and results, so the sort of managing non-people stuff, the planning, program project management. So you can see there's a lot in this. Influencing skills, maybe that's a big part of this job. Organizing things. Is there a lot of pressure in this job? How do they cope under pressure? What causes them pressure? The kind of environment that they're likely to thrive in or not cope in. So we need to kind of know a bit about that. And of course, we'll have their sort of strengths and the things that naturally challenge them, which is in here as well. Yeah, so areas of challenge. So, and then finally, right at the end here, there's actually how to create the right interview environment. And again, this is something pretty unique to People Maps. If you're going to interview someone, put them in an environment, an interview environment, that they're more likely to open up and talk. And this is personality centric, so it's different for different people. And this topic here, right at the end of the report, will tell you what environment to create to get the best from that interview experience for you. And so remember, interviews are all about getting candidates to open up and actually relax and talk, say something that you wouldn't have known otherwise. Okay, so let me scoot back up to the top of the page. I think I'm going to just pick one subject here, which will be, let's say, yeah, okay, let's do communication, right? So for this job, this role, I've already decided that communication is a big deal. So we have this report here. So I would read it, I would familiarise myself with it. And what you'll notice is it's the first thing it does, it tells you a little bit about this candidate and their communication style. Right? So you hear a wee bit here. And then you get some comments from us. So it's telling you a wee bit more and looking at it with a slightly more consultant's eye. And then you'll find there's some questions to ask. So in this specific case here, tell me about a situation where you have to analyse detailed information. So it then tells you what you should be looking for in answer to these questions. So it's not just about asking the right question, which this question is going to be a particularly challenging question for this individual. But when you're looking at the answer, we already know that this is something that they're going to find challenging. So this is what this is telling us here. And then we've got a wee bit more on development advice here as well. So this is a lot to talk about. And finally, sorry, right at the bottom here, it's wrapped around onto the next page. We have one of the gauges. So what this tells us is a gauge that says actively listens and seeks to understand what the customers say and mean. So what we've done is we've measured this very specific aspect of behaviour, and we've given it a score, in this case 70. So 70 is okay, that's pretty good in fact, which tells us that naturally this person actively listens and seeks to understand what the customers say and mean. It's not extremely high, but it's not that bad. So we already know this much. So again, if I was going to interview this candidate, one of the things I'd be saying, once I kind of digested this, I would say to them that this was sort of how they've scored on this. And I would ask them, do they agree with that? Do they disagree with that? Do they think that's a reasonably accurate scoring of them? Or do they think they're much better, or do they think they're worse than that? Now, what that does is it takes this confrontationary situation away. It lets you use a third party, i.e. the document, the report itself, as something that you both can point at and talk about. So it kind of takes the pressure off the candidate. You're not talking about the candidate specifically, you're talking about the report. And that allows the candidate to relax. That's the psychology that's at play here. So make the most of this. This is an opportunity to get people to relax. And it's much easier for a candidate to talk about this report than it is to talk about themselves in an honest and open and relaxed fashion. So that's partly what's going on here. And it's okay for them to disagree with this. They can say, oh, actually, no, I'm much more good at listening to people than this. So, and again, they would never disagree with you as an interviewer and a potential employer, but they can disagree with a report because that's not you. So again, the psychology of this is really important. So the conversation that would come just from this gauge will be really useful to you in terms of you'll learn about this candidate, things that just don't come up in a normal type of interview. Now, this is true of any of the statements here. So you could pick any sentence here and give that to the candidate and say, how do you feel about that? So for instance, let me just pick something at random. Okay, so it says here, and this is what you could say to the candidate, it says in this report that the relationship will always come before the detail with you. Do you agree with that? So that is going to open up a conversation. That simple sentence is holding quite a complex concept. So you're learning about relationships and that relationships are important to this person. It's also indirectly saying that they're not that detailed. So you'll get to explore that within a context. And again, it's just not you that's saying this, it's the report that's saying this. So it's okay for them to disagree with that or say, well, that's not how I would say it. You know, how would you say it? Do you agree with this? Do you disagree with this? How would you say this? What's your alternative to this statement? How would you say it if you do disagree with it? That's how the conversation starts to reveal really interesting things and helps you as the employer get underneath the shell that comes with all that armour that comes with every interview candidate, lets you get underneath that to the more open and honest person that is there and to get a more honest opinion, an informed opinion of this candidate. So you can see why even in this report of this length, you're not going to get through all of this easily in a 45-minute interview. You want the conversation to flow. So for instance, here's another one on decision making. And again, you could do the same thing. So right down here, this gauge is measuring is good at making decisions, is neither hasty nor dithering, okay? Because there's different ways of being bad at making decisions. What this tells us is that they're scoring 60. So it's not great. So, you know, it's not a deal breaker, but it's certainly something you might want to talk about if there is going to be a lot of decision making expected in the job role. So again, this is something you can confront the individual with and say, how do you feel about this score? Is it too low? Is it too high? And if they say, oh, it's too low, I'm much better at making decisions, then he's fantastic. How can you give us an example of that? Can you illustrate that? Draw upon an experience. What happened recently where you did make a decision and give me some context for that. So now you're getting them to talk about stuff. And really for this person here, decision making isn't great. So, you know, they will struggle with this. And then you can come back to the actual questions. Tell me about a time, this is the question here, that you had to make an unpopular decision affecting not only your team but the organisation. So again, this is clearly a difficult area for this candidate. It's not a deal breaker by any matter of means, but they will find this challenging, and the conversation that comes from this will really help you understand how they go about making decisions and if they are going to be able to cope with the type of decisions that you'll be expecting to make and the amount of decisions that you will expect them to make in this job role. Again, you're looking for examples, you're looking for them to illustrate any statements that they make. Can you tell me where that happened? Can you give me an example of that? These are the things that you want to get into a little more deeply. And again, just keep coming back to it's not you that's claiming any of this. You don't know this person. It's the report. Blame the report, use the report as a lever and let them challenge the report. Encourage them to challenge the report. Never defend the statement in the report because you don't know if it's accurate or not. Let them challenge it. Let them give you an opinion. And the wonderful thing here is even if they disagree with this the fact that they do disagree with it is likely still to get you what you want, which is, well, how do you disagree with it? What would you say instead of this? Why do you feel that way? So it's still getting them to open up. And in many cases, statements that they disagree with possibly will reveal more in the conversation about them than anything else. So nothing is wasted in using this type of report. So that's how I would approach it if I was taking a client through this. And I say I might even do one of these questions on the phone, or I might do the interview in 2 or 3 stages, and I'll maybe just use a part of the interview at each stage. I say other things you can do, you can copy and paste this whole report into a Google document, for instance, and you could share that with your colleagues. So maybe there's 2 or 3 of you making a decision, and you could collaborate on that document. You could add comments, and you could make notes, and you can your colleagues can make notes and comments on that as well. So it can become a very real and live document, rather than, I say, just something that sits in a drawer. You should always look at these reports as being the beginning of the conversation. It's the key to the door, not the room itself. It's there to get the conversation, get the information coming from the candidate, because ultimately what we're trying to do is make better decisions with more data. And that data is going to come from the candidate, and your ability to get candidates to open up and relax and reveal what they would maybe not normally reveal, that's where your interviews are really working for you. Okay, so hopefully you found this wee video helpful. This is how I would approach it. It's only some of the things I would do. There's probably lots of others I could say, but this video is probably a bit longer than I intended. So hopefully you've found that useful.